Today, he's been arrested by the Texas Rangers and he resigned. KAMR Local 4's Kaylee Green has more from local law enforcement and from the woman who claims that she was the alleged victim of Collier's alleged.
He wore the badge. He was the protector, the man you'd call when everything else went wrong. But behind that uniform, Jason Collier was living a secret life, a Texas police chief, a husband, a father, and to more than one woman, a fiancé. He promised love, he spoke of faith, he swore honesty. And to Cecily Steinmetz, he was everything she'd ever wanted, until the messages stopped adding up. The stories didn't match, and the man who claimed to be divorced was still very much married. He said he was free to love again, Cecily recalled, but the documents, the proof, everything was fake. What began as a romance would unravel into a web of lies, forged papers, and heartbreak so deep it would leave a small Texas town in shock. What drove a respected police chief to forge his own annulment papers and juggle multiple fiancés at once would soon leave America speechless. Welcome to True Crime Wound, where we unravel the lies behind the badge and expose the truth buried beneath trust, power, and deception. Tonight, we bring you the police chief's dark secret, the Jason Collier case. But this isn't just the story of a man in uniform. It's the story of the woman who believed in him and how her courage turned a quiet Texas scandal into a nationwide storm. Meet Cecily Steinmetz, an ordinary woman who fell for a man who wasn't what he claimed to be. Her story would ignite social media, capture national headlines, and expose one of the most bizarre tales of deceit ever to come out of small-town Texas. Because when the truth finally surfaced, it didn't just shatter one heart, it shattered an illusion. This is the Jason Collier case. Before the scandal, before the lies unraveled, there was a man who wore the badge with pride, Jason Collier, police chief of Stinnett, Texas. A quiet town, small and unassuming, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and everyone trusted the man in uniform. He wasn't just the chief. He was a father, a husband, a man of faith, the one who prayed before meetings, who smiled in church pews, and who promised to serve with honor. In the eyes of the community, Jason was a model officer, steady, responsible, dependable, the kind of man you'd never expect to see in headlines. But beneath that calm exterior, something else was brewing, a double life that would soon come crashing down. Then came her, Cecily Steinmetz, living in Amarillo, independent, hopeful, open to love again. When she met Jason, it felt like fate had finally been kind. Their connection was instant. He was charming, confident, grounded. He told her about his faith, his family, his job. He spoke with warmth, the kind that made Cecily believe every word. They spent hours texting, calling, sharing dreams and plans. Jason talked about a future together, one filled with love, stability, and promise. He met her family. He smiled in photos. He told her she was the one he'd prayed for. To Cecily, it wasn't just romance. It was a second chance at life. She invested in him. Her time, her heart, her trust. She supported his career, stood by him during long shifts, and bragged to her friends about the man she'd found. But behind those messages, behind that reassuring smile, was a truth she couldn't yet see. A truth that would soon tear apart everything she thought she knew about love and about the man who wore the badge. At first, everything between Jason and Cecily felt real. The connection, the laughter, the late-night messages that made her believe love had finally found her. They texted constantly, "Good night, love you. Soon we'll be married." Promises whispered through glowing phone screens, painting a future that seemed within reach. Jason wasn't just a man in uniform. He was attentive, caring, devoted. At least, that's how it appeared. He talked about a new beginning, asked her to look at engagement rings, even told her she was the reason he smiled again. To Cecily, it felt perfect, almost too perfect. Then came the first cracks, sudden work trips, excuses about late meetings. Days when his voice sounded distant, his words rehearsed. He'd vanish without explanation, return with stories that didn't quite add up. And Cecily began to wonder, why couldn't he share his schedule? Why were his stories so vague? What was he hiding behind that badge? The unease grew. She asked questions. He reassured her, smooth, confident, unwavering. But then came the moment that changed everything. Cecily asked to see proof that his past marriage was truly over. Jason sent her a document, an annulment, signed, sealed, and stamped with official markings. For a moment, relief washed over her. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the man she loved was telling the truth after all. But something about that paper didn't sit right. The font, the seal, the way it looked too perfect. Her heart wanted to believe. Her instincts told her otherwise, because when she looked closely, she wasn't staring at freedom from his past. She was staring at the first sign of a carefully constructed lie. When Cecily asked for proof, Jason Collier didn't send her the truth. He sent her a forgery, an official-looking annulment, completely fake and dangerously convincing. Doubt. It always starts as a whisper. For Cecily, it began with questions she couldn't silence, little inconsistencies, uneasy pauses, and then the words from a friend that changed everything. "I'm friends with his wife on Facebook." Her heart sank. The truth she never wanted to believe was standing right in front of her. She confronted him, her voice trembling yet fierce. "Why did you meet my kids? Why do you lie to me?" Jason's replies came fast, smooth, practiced, calm. "I had it annulled. Trust me." Those words, "trust me," the same ones that once brought comfort, now cut deep like a blade. But Cecily had seen enough. She was done hiding, done believing. On a quiet January night, she opened her phone and decided the world deserved to know. She typed, "Chief Jason Collier is living a double, maybe even triple, life." And she hit post. That single click set off an explosion. The post went viral within hours. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, and soon, other women stepped forward. Christy Schaffer, and more, each bringing screenshots, messages, and stories that mirrored Cecily's. A pattern too bold to ignore, too shocking to hide. By the end of that week, Jason Collier wasn't just a husband or a fiancé, he was a headline. And the small town of Stinnett, Texas, was about to witness the unmasking of its own police chief. The deception wasn't just emotional, it was criminal. When investigators began digging into Jason Collier's claims, they discovered something that went far beyond lies of love. The annulment document he had sent to Cecily, the one he swore was real, signed by a judge, sealed by a court, was a complete fabrication. A judge confirmed it. There was no such record, no filing, no legal annulment in existence. What looked like a romantic lie had suddenly become a criminal act. The Texas Rangers stepped in. They examined the forged paperwork, the fake signatures, the fabricated seals. Every detail pointed to intent. The intent to deceive, to manipulate, to make his double life appear legitimate. And soon the story that started as a scandal turned into a case file. Jason Collier, chief of police in Stinnett, Texas, was arrested on charges of tampering with a government record with intent to defraud. The moment was surreal. The same man who once led officers into arrests was now being handcuffed himself. The same badge he wore with pride was now tarnished by his own actions. As the cameras rolled and the town whispered in disbelief, one truth settled over everyone who had followed the story. This wasn't just about broken hearts. It was about the betrayal of duty, the exploitation of trust, and the fall of a man who believed he could live two lives without consequence. In the silence that followed his arrest, you could almost hear the echo of every lie he told, finally catching up to him. When the truth about Jason Collier's deception surfaced, law enforcement could no longer ignore what the public already knew. A police chief, trusted to uphold the law, had broken it himself. The Texas Rangers stepped in. They combed through documents, phone records, and digital trails, each message, each file, each forged signature. The deeper they dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a calculated abuse of authority and trust. Investigators pieced together a puzzle of lies, multiple women, multiple promises, and one falsified annulment document that Collier had used to make his lies look legitimate. News spread quickly. Television anchors led with his name. Social media lit up with outrage and disbelief. How could a man wearing the badge of justice commit such a personal betrayal and forge legal papers to do it? In Stinnett, Texas, a town so small that everyone knows everyone, the shock was immediate. Neighbors couldn't believe it. The man they saw in uniform, smiling at church, speaking at community events, was suddenly the center of a national scandal. The city of Stinnett acted fast. Collier was placed on administrative leave, then resigned days later under growing pressure. The same badge that had once brought him respect was now the symbol of his downfall. Meanwhile, Cecily faced her own battle. The media wanted her story. Reporters wanted her reaction. Every headline carried her name alongside his. It wasn't easy. The same courage that had exposed his lies now left her vulnerable to the world's judgment. Still, she stood firm. Her decision to speak up had opened a door for other women to come forward, for a small town to confront its shame, and for the system to hold one of its own accountable. For Jason Collier, the investigation ended in humiliation. For Cecily, it became something else, a chance to reclaim her truth. Because in the end, for the women he deceived, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about honesty. And above all, it was about taking back the story he tried to control. When the headlines faded and the outrage cooled, Cecily Steinmetz was left to face something much quieter, the weight of everything she'd uncovered. Her story had gone viral. Millions read her post, shared her pain, and called her brave. But behind the screen, behind the comments, there was still a woman trying to rebuild her life. She had believed in Jason Collier, not just as a man, but as a partner, a future husband, a protector. And when that illusion shattered, she lost more than love. She lost her peace, her trust, and the belief that honesty lives behind every smile. For months, Cecily was at the center of a storm. Everywhere she went, people recognized her name. Reporters called, strangers messaged, some offered sympathy. Others doubted her. But she stood her ground, calm, composed, and unbroken. Jason Collier's career was over. The once proud police chief of Stinnett resigned in disgrace. His badge, his title, his reputation, gone. What remained was the truth, and a lesson that spread far beyond Texas. Cecily didn't let bitterness define her. She focused on her children, on healing, on finding herself again. The woman who once quietly trusted the wrong man became the voice that warned thousands of others to question what feels too perfect. Because in the end, her courage didn't just expose one liar, it exposed how easily trust can be manipulated. Her strength reminded the world that love without truth isn't love at all. Cecily lost the man she thought she knew, but she found something stronger, her own voice, and the peace that comes when truth finally takes the place of illusion. She lost her trust, her pride, and the man she thought she loved. But in speaking out, she found her voice and changed the story forever. A man sworn to protect and enforce the law ended up breaking the most personal law of all, the law of trust. Jason Collier's badge once symbolized honor, but his lies turned it into a mask. He wasn't just deceiving the women who loved him. He was deceiving the very idea of integrity. And in his web of deceit, he left behind broken hearts, a shattered community, and a haunting question that still lingers today. Was it love or manipulation, affection or control? Every promise he made, every ring he offered, every "I love you" he whispered, was a tool to build an illusion. He used love as camouflage and authority as his weapon. And yet, out of that deception came something powerful, a woman's courage, a community's awakening. Because when Cecily spoke out, she did more than expose one man. She shattered the silence that allows deception to thrive. Trust is a fragile thing. It can't be earned with badges or titles, only through truth. The Jason Collier story reminds us that betrayal doesn't always wear a villain's face. Sometimes it smiles, says the right words, and promises forever. But love built on lies will always collapse under its own weight. And for those who have ever been deceived, Cecily's story is a reminder. You can lose everything you believed in and still find yourself standing. A man of the law became a man of lies. A woman of heartbreak became a voice of truth. And somewhere between love and law, between justice and betrayal, lies a lesson for us all. That the greatest justice is often the truth we dare to tell ourselves. Because sometimes the most dangerous secrets are the ones hidden in plain sight. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Do you believe Cecily's courage changed the course of this case? Or was Jason Collier's downfall something he created all on his own? Your voice matters here. Every story, every opinion, every truth we uncover, it all begins with you. And if you want to hear more stories about the truth behind the badge, turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. This is True Crime Wound, where truth always bleeds through.